Hey, Epiphany, how are you? Nice to see you. Reading the Bible here, Friday morning, John chapter 5, we're in verse 39. Yesterday we talked about how we live out our lives for the glory of God, how we were made in a particular way, thought about and needed to be in this world, right? To fight tyranny and oppression. And really, the bottom line is our goal is to make space for everybody to be whole and full and completely themselves. So what are things that get in the way of that? The repression upon a person by another person, poverty, inequity. Those are core things that don't let a person sort of grow into who they're meant to be. It's why the church has been so involved in medicine and nursing and disaster relief and care for the poor and mental health. We've gone after these things historically, not to be good do-gooders, though that's a secondary benefit. We go after these things so we can reveal the glory of God in the lives of all persons. Right, so we try to remove the barriers. Education's another thing that Christians have done so well for hundreds of years, to make space for people to be fully magnified, glorified, and be that person God made them to be. So that's why we do what we do. It's not about charity per se, it's about the glorification of God. So let's look at that here, and let's talk about things that get in the way of that. John 5, verse 39. He's talking to his disciples. Remember, you search the scriptures because you think that in them you have eternal life. And it is they that testify on my behalf. Yet you refuse to come to me to have life. I do not accept glory from human beings, but I know that you do not have the love of God in you. I have come in my Father's name, and you do not accept me. If another comes in his own name, you accept him. How can you believe when you accept glory from another, and you do not seek glory that comes from the one who alone is God? Do not think that I will accuse you before the Father. Your accuser is Moses, on whom you set your hope. If you believed Moses, you would believe me, for he wrote about me. But if you do not believe what he wrote, how will you believe what I say? Moses is your accuser? Really? Come on. Well, let's back up and see what Moses did. Moses brought the law to the people of Israel. And the beauty of the law is he brought community together. He gave them safety and consistency. And he said, if you live the law, you will love your neighbors. You will love the Lord your God, and you will love your neighbor. Jesus put it so succinctly in his genius. The culmination of the law is loving God and loving your neighbor. That's why the law is there. But what he's saying here is the law became the thing that put you out of relationship with God. You became God's by judging yourself and others against the law. So he said, Jesus said, the law that Moses gave pointed towards me and being in relationship with me as a neighbor and as God. And so he goes back and he says, I've come in my Father's name, but you do not accept me. If another came in their own name, you would accept them. You accept the testimony of one person to another because you're concerned about your own testimony. But Jesus says the only testimony for which we should be concerned is God's, and to seek the glory of God alone. So he goes back here. You search the scriptures for eternal life, and they testify on my behalf. You remember the story, Luke chapter 24, on the road to Emmaus with Cleopas and the friend, Jesus walking, and he reveals to them how he is, the Messiah is, the culmination of Holy Scriptures. The author of the Gospel of John is saying the same thing right here. And yet you refuse to come to me. Right? You go to the Scriptures, but you refuse to come to me. And then he says something interesting. I don't accept the glory of human beings. And I think that's an important point. I think it's an invitation for us to consider too, right? If we are striving to receive glory from humanity, narcissism, pride, pleasing, become the guiding principles, and we become focused on the other, and that does two things. We lose ourselves, and we miss the priority of being in relationship with God. Right, so what Jesus is saying here, go to God alone. And if we go to God alone, we get better insight into ourselves. And that helps us live into deeper relationship with one another. And then we believe, and then we are opened to God. So that's what we have here at the end of chapter 5. We have this idea that Jesus is understood in the Bible, right? Jesus is the culmination of the law, and when we live by the law as our standards, we can actually be thrown out of relationship with the neighbor and God. But when we live as God as our standard, we're deeply embedded in the core love of creation that is revealed to us through Jesus Christ. Right? Let your feet be planted in that core bed of love. Say thank you to God. When you go outside today, kick some dirt. I do go outside. It's raining a little bit, but you'll be okay. And kick some dirt and push it around a little bit and be reminded that you are planted in God's divine love. You were thought about at the beginning of time. You are thought about right now. I think about you. I pray for you. And I love you. Have a good weekend. See you Sunday, I hope, fiber optically, worshiping online with me and others all over the world. And peace upon your souls.